Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jordan Giesige, and this is The Limiting Factor. For anyone who follows energy, geopolitics, or technology, it's clear that there's momentum building around nuclear energy. It's seeing growing public support, technological advances that could make it cheaper and safer, and it's the absolute champion when it comes to low-carbon energy production. The question is, will that momentum result in a renaissance for nuclear power? That's what I'll attempt to answer with this new video series. Today we'll start by looking at the bear case for nuclear, and the best example of that is from RethinkX, which has forecasted that nuclear power production will collapse in the 2020s. In my view, that forecast is overly bearish because it doesn't take into account the role that nuclear plays in the overall grid mix, doesn't seem to factor in the cost of existing nuclear generation compared to new nuclear generation, doesn't factor in that nuclear power is the ideal power source for AI data centers, and the exponential growth in electricity demand that's expected from the broad-based push for greater electrification. Once again, bear in mind that today's video will just address the bear case. In upcoming videos, I'll get deeper into topics like whether nuclear power will be needed when solar, wind, and batteries are a fraction of what they cost today, and the economics of next-generation and small modular reactors. Before we begin, a special thanks to my Patreon supporters, YouTube members, and Twitter subscribers, as well as Rebellionaire.com. They specialize in helping investors manage concentrated positions. Rebellionaire can help with covered calls, risk management, and creating a money master plan from your financial first principles. For this video, I'd also like to thank Nathan Iyer of the Rocky Mountain Institute, Jesse Pelton, founder of Type 1, Matt Smith of Rebellionaire, Stephen Bigalski of the Georgia Institute of Technology, and Lars Liesdahl of Rystad Energy. This video couldn't have been made without their insights, but as always, any errors are a reflection of my attempt to simplify and communicate a complex topic. To set the tone for this video series, the first point worth covering is that I'm technology agnostic when it comes to energy generation technologies. I only care about using the right tool for the job. That is, I don't believe there's a holy grail of electricity generation that'll solve every use case. So for me, the question is not which energy technology is best, because that's the wrong way of looking at the electricity grid, but rather, what are the use cases and what are the best solutions to each of those use cases? And from there, we can try to determine how much each technology will scale over time. In the case of this video series, I'll be focusing on nuclear energy. So let's start by taking a 10,000-foot view. There are three types of electricity generation. The first is inflexible, and the best example of that is nuclear power. The advantage of nuclear power is that it has up to around 90% uptime, which provides a solid foundation for the grid. However, the disadvantage of nuclear is that it has high capital costs. So, in order to be profitable, a nuclear plant needs to run as much as possible. Additionally, a nuclear reactor takes days to spool up and days to cool down. That means it's easier for grid operators to run nuclear continuously rather than trying to chase the daily ebbs and flows in power demand by throttling the reactor. The next type of electricity generation is flexible generation, and the best example of that is natural gas-powered plants that can adapt to demand by increasing and decreasing output. There are two types of gas generation. Simple cycle gas generation has low capital cost because it uses relatively simple technology in the form of a gas turbine, but the operational costs are high because they have low fuel efficiency. That combination of qualities makes them perfect for peak power demand because they can sit idle until they're needed, then capitalize on high power costs during peak demand. Combined cycle gas generation has moderate capital costs because they're more complex. They not only have a gas turbine, but also a heat recovery system and boiler that runs a steam turbine. That results in greater fuel efficiency. That means combined cycle gas turbines are low cost enough to operate as baseload, but they can also ramp up and down quickly with demand to serve as flexible generation. With those two types of electricity generation, inflexible and flexible, grid operators can meet any demand while keeping costs low by utilizing the strengths of each technology. There's still one more type of generation, variable generation, and the best examples of that are solar and wind power. They have moderate capital costs and no fuel costs, but they only produce power when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. That means they're low cost, but in order for them to provide reliable power, they have to be combined with inflexible or flexible generation to fill in the supply gaps, which is called firming. What all this means is that each electricity generation technology occupies a niche that it's best suited to, and the optimal solution for a reliable grid requires a variety of technologies. That technology mix can vary quite a bit depending on a number of factors like geography, interest rates, fuel costs, and latitude. Coming full circle, this is why I don't believe in a holy grail of electricity generation, and I try to be technology agnostic. It doesn't make sense to become a fanboy of one technology because it's counterproductive. For example, some people assume that somehow nuclear power is at odds with solar or wind power, or the inverse, which is that nuclear will make up for the shortcomings of solar and wind power. But in energy systems analysis, they often get lumped together. Why? Because they each have a tendency to produce excess energy. Solar power, for example, will sometimes produce more power than the grid can use on a sunny day. And nuclear power, for example, will continue to produce power at full tilt, even when demand is low. More on that in a moment. What this means is that there's a positive correlation for solar, wind, and nuclear versus energy storage technologies like lithium-ion batteries, which allow the excess energy to be captured when demand and prices are low, and sold into the grid when demand and prices are high. So, the solar and wind provide ultra-cheap power because they don't need fuel. The nuclear provides a reliable baseload for when there's no sun and wind, and the battery storage makes better use of all of them. It's an ecosystem of complementary technologies. With that context in place, let's zero in on nuclear energy. As I said in the introduction, the most bearish forecast I've seen for nuclear is by RethinkX. They expect nuclear power to collapse by 2030. The core of their argument is that newly installed solar, wind, and batteries are soon going to be cheaper than nuclear power. That means the utilization rates of nuclear plants will drop, causing the cost of nuclear power to skyrocket, which in turn will result in those nuclear plants being shut down. However, there's 4 reasons why that logic may be incorrect. Let's take a look. First, in most power grids, nuclear is treated as a must-run generation service, which means it operates at all times. Let's look at how that works in practice. As I said earlier, nuclear can't throttle quickly enough to match power demand. At night or other periods of low demand, that means the nuclear plant has to sell energy cheaply and underbid other generation technologies to continue running. That can often mean running at a loss during those periods, but it still improves the overall economics of the nuclear plant compared to throttling or shutting down. That's because the low fuel costs and high capital costs of nuclear plants mean they lose even more money if they're just sitting idle. With that in mind, this image from RethinkX doesn't add up for me. As far as I can tell, they expect nuclear plants to shut down for parts of the week or year, which might actually end up costing the nuclear plant operators more money overall than running them at a loss during periods of weak demand. That is, in my view, if the economics of a nuclear plant are no longer profitable in aggregate across periods of high and low demand, they'll just be shut down completely and mothballed rather than run intermittently. That means the utilization rates of the plants that are still running would remain above 90% and result in a flat line for capacity factor. As a side note, even if nuclear power is more expensive, the continuous and stable power generated by nuclear plants may be worth a certain price premium that could keep them around on the grid longer than expected. How much that premium is, I'm not sure, and how long it could save nuclear plants from being mothballed, I don't know. But it is worth considering not just the price of electricity, but also the value it provides for grid stability. The second issue with RethinkX's analysis is that they appear to have focused on new nuclear power plants and ignored existing nuclear power plants, which have vastly different economics. They estimated that the cost of new nuclear generation in 2025 would be about 43 cents per kilowatt hour, or $430 per megawatt hour. The most recent data we have from Lazard, published in June of this year, indicates that it's turned out to be $142 to $222 per megawatt hour, or 14 to 22 cents per kilowatt hour, so about half the cost that RethinkX had predicted. What about fully depreciated nuclear generation from existing nuclear plants, which makes up almost all of the nuclear generation in the United States? According to Lazard, on average, the energy from those nuclear plants has a levelized cost of $32 per megawatt hour, which is about 3 cents per kilowatt hour. For comparison, at the very low end with generous assumptions, onshore wind and utility-scale solar can be as cheap as $27 or $29 per megawatt hour. But again, that's with generous assumptions. As I said earlier, due to the fact that solar and wind are variable, they require other generation technologies to buffer and support them, which adds to their cost. The dark blue and light blue bars on screen show the cost of building new generation from solar and wind, with and without tax credits, across different energy markets in the United States. ERCOT is, for example, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. The tan-colored bars above the dark blue and light blue bars represent the additional firming cost. As you can see, with the firming costs factored in, solar, wind, and batteries cost between $49 to $177 per megawatt hour, or about 5 to 18 cents per kilowatt hour. That's considerably more expensive than the $32 per megawatt hour, or 3 cents per kilowatt hour for fully depreciated nuclear. That is, the competition from solar and wind generation isn't going to be shutting down nuclear plants at scale anytime soon. Yes, there are some nuclear plants that have been shut down in recent years due to price competition, but for the most part, it wasn't due to price competition from solar and wind generation. Instead, it was due to competition from natural gas generation, which, thanks to the fracking boom for fully depreciated equipment, now costs $30 per megawatt hour all in because it's inherently firm. Furthermore, gas generation has the benefit of being able to spool up or down to match demand. That is, although RethinkX is correct that installing new solar, wind, and battery generation is cheaper than installing new nuclear, it's going to be years before the same is true for fully depreciated nuclear plants. In fact, rather than a collapse in nuclear generation, it's looking increasingly likely that we're going to see nuclear production increase in the next 5 to 10 years. Why? Let's take a look at the third issue with the analysis from RethinkX. Their paper was written in 2020, before the AI boom. Goldman Sachs estimates that the power demand from all data centers globally was 500 terawatt hours in 2024, and that will more than double to about 1,050 terawatts by 2030. That number's probably conservative, but let's run with it. The average nuclear plant has a capacity of about 1 gigawatt, and assuming a utilization rate of 90%, that's 900 megawatts. Multiply that by 365 days per year and 24 hours per day, and the result is roughly 8 terawatt hours of generation per year. If the electricity demand from data centers increases by roughly 550 terawatt hours globally in the next 5 years, that's about 70 nuclear plants that would be needed by 2030. Yes, only about 20% of that power demand will be from AI, but that will only accelerate over time. Additionally, while it's true that AI data centers can use energy from any type of generation, and will be, AI data centers and nuclear power are a great match for each other. That's why Microsoft announced that they're restarting the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant to power their AI data centers. They could have instead chosen to invest in solar, wind, and batteries or natural gas, but they didn't. Why is that? Some people would suggest it's because the plant is eligible for hundreds of millions of dollars from the zero emissions tax credits. However, other forms of energy generation are also eligible for tax credits, such as biomass, wind, and geothermal. So it still doesn't explain why nuclear is the preferred generation for AI data centers. Others might assume that restarting 3 Mile Island would be quicker than building new generation of other types, but that's not necessarily the case. It looks like 3 Mile Island isn't going to be back online until 2028, which is 4 years from 2024 when Microsoft announced the deal to restart the facility. 4 years is enough time to bring completely new generation online from other sources. With all that in mind, in my view, the reason why Microsoft is using nuclear power for their AI data centers is threefold. First, as I said earlier, fully depreciated nuclear power plants offer some of the cheapest power available, and it's likely going to be years before solar and wind with firming can compete at that price point. Microsoft could also build new natural gas generation, but that runs $45 to $108 per megawatt hour, or 5 to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. Second, nuclear power has the lowest carbon emissions of any energy generation technology, which reduces the public relations risks of building out power-hungry data centers. Yes, they will catch some flack from the people who still have apprehensions about the safety of nuclear, but the majority of Americans now support nuclear power. Third, as I said a moment ago, AI data centers and nuclear are a great match for each other. Both have high capital costs and need to run as much as possible to maximize their commercial viability. AI guarantees large and steady power demand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year, and those are exactly the economics where nuclear works best. The last issue with RethinkX's analysis is that we're seeing massive revisions upward and the growth of the energy market in general. After years of stagnation, the energy market in the U.S. is expected to expand rapidly due to not just the all-devouring energy needs of AI data centers, but also broad-based electrification for technologies like EVs. Due to that, energy demand is expected to double or triple by 2050. As I showed in the last video of the grid storage series, RethinkX correctly forecasted that the price of solar, wind, and batteries is going to plummet thanks to the effects of scaling. If electricity demand was expected to remain flat in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd say their forecast that nuclear would be displaced in the next 5 to 10 years by cheap solar, wind, and batteries would have a higher likelihood of occurring because less demand means more price competition, and the cheapest power would win out. However, if power demand ends up growing by 2 to 3 times in the next 25 years, that could have 3 impacts. First, despite lower generation costs thanks to solar, wind, and batteries, electricity prices could increase if the build-out of generation capacity, and therefore electricity supply, ends up chasing electricity demand. Second, on that note, a shortage of electricity generation or higher prices might slow the speed that older electricity generation technologies are removed from the grid, or even see them reopened, which is exactly what's happening with Microsoft and 3 Mile Island. Third, higher electricity prices could mean there's a market opportunity to not only restart mothballed nuclear facilities, but also spur the build-out of next-generation nuclear facilities that have high initial investment costs. In summary, contrary to the bear case, nuclear power isn't going away anytime soon. Almost all of the nuclear facilities in the United States produce energy from fully depreciated equipment at $32 per megawatt hour, which, with all costs considered, is some of the cheapest available. Yes, by 2030, the price of solar, wind, and battery systems are expected to drop by over 50%, which, even including firming costs, will bring them into price parity or make them cheaper than nuclear. But there are other factors at play that'll likely keep existing nuclear plants operational for decades to come. The first is the AI boom, which is well suited to using nuclear power, and that demand will only skyrocket in the coming decades. Microsoft's agreement at 3 Mile Island is, for example, 20 years. The second is that electricity demand in general is expected to double or triple by 2050, which could mean that electricity supply lags demand, meaning higher prices, meaning that more expensive generation technologies could remain operational for longer. However, nuclear power from new generation facilities is a different story because in the United States, it costs $142 to $222 per megawatt hour. So the key question to answer, which I hope to do in the next 2 videos of the series, is in the coming decade, whether new nuclear plants and next-generation nuclear reactors have any real chance in the face of competition from ultra-cheap solar, wind, and batteries. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting the channel by using the links in the description. Also, consider following me on X. I often use X as a testbed for sharing ideas, and X subscribers, like my Patreon supporters, generally get access to my videos a week early. On that note, a special thanks to my YouTube members, X subscribers, and all the other patrons listed in the credits. I appreciate all of your support, and thanks for tuning in.